All right. In this video, we're going to be making a fall themed art project. And all you need for this lesson is a piece of white construction paper or printer paper, a black crayon, watercolors, and a cup for water. So this video will be in two parts just because I am still teaching my students how to do this. So we're going to do the first part today, and then I will make a second video later. So the reason we're pulling out two materials is because this project requires two mediums. Now the word medium means type of art supply, and in this case, the two materials are crayon and watercolor. So let's go ahead and get started. So for this video, I asked my students to cut a larger piece of construction paper in half. The reason being is a whole piece of construction paper, which I'm going to show you what it looks like, is quite a size difference. And the type of project that we're doing today requires a lot of coloring, and this would just be way too much. So to be able to do this paper, if you have a full half sheet of construction paper or printer paper, I highly recommend you follow these steps. You first need to fold your paper in half, and there are two ways to fold it technically. So there's always what I call the hot dog way, which is where you're going to have a long, thinner, rectangular piece of paper. But the way I really want you to fold it is what we call hamburger. So the wider parts to the wider parts, and then you go ahead and fold it. Now, to always make a easier, nicer crease, I always use a pencil to get that crease to fold really neatly so that it's really smooth, and then when you open it, you can definitely see it. So I do want you to either cut that crease with scissors, or if you don't have scissors, you can actually just use your hands to separate that crease if you go super slow. And again, if you use that pencil, it'll actually do it really crisp. And there, now we have two halves. We can save this other half for another project. So we're going to be turning this piece of paper into a haunted house themed project, and it's going to look like this. So you'll see that there are two mediums for it. We have our crayon, which is a wax-based material, and then we have watercolor, which is pigmented, and you use water to get it to various degrees of brilliance. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you were not comfortable drawing with the crayon, I recommend you use a pencil, which is totally okay, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started with my crayon. So the first thing we're going to do is draw the base of our drawing, and in this case, that's going to be the floor or the ground. Now, I always do a flat portion and a bumpy portion just to give it some differentiation, and I'm going to go ahead and start here, and then I'm going to do my bumpy side first, and then I'm going to flatten it out and put my house on the flat part. Once you have your ground, you're ready to start building your house. Now, I'm going to build my house over here in the flat part. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and do two vertical lines. And you get to decide if you want your house to be thinner or if you want it to be really wide. I'm going to keep it about medium because I'm going to put something over here in this negative space next to the house. So there are my two lines to start the actual building portion of the house. And now I'm going to do the roof. Now, there's two ways you can do the roof. You can either put a triangle, physically draw a triangle going across, which is fine. It doesn't matter. We're going to color. But I'm just going to go ahead and just start from the top. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you make mistakes, the great thing is the crayon will cover it. And I'm just going to connect my lines to make my roof. Perfect. And like I said, it's not perfect, but it's okay. We're going to make it spruced up as we continue this project. So now I want to do the windows portion of my door. I did modify it when I started doing this with my students in class. So I actually added a door, and I know the door doesn't go through the house all the way, but this is just a creative project. So I'm going to put my door on the left side of the house, and you can make it a square or you can round it. I wanted to round it like an old school door. And then I put my window directly next to it. And again, you can see my line's crooked. That's totally fine. The great thing is I can just fix it because everything else is going to be colored in. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put two intersecting lines for my window panes. And you want to make these lines a little bit thicker. All right. I also want to put a window in the attic area, my roof area, just to make it more colorful. I'm going to make this one a bit bigger. And once I do my circle, and you can do a square or a triangle, it's your call, I'm going to go ahead and then do 2 intersecting lines there. And then I do want to thicken these lines out because houses that have old school window panes like this, the lines are thicker to keep the glass in place. So I'm happy with that house. Now we're going to move on to the outside decorations. Now, if your crown is newer than mine, it'll be pointed, whereas mine is totally rounded, so it's a little bit harder for me to draw. So I'm going to put my little kitty cat over here. Now, if you don't want to do a cat, you could do a pumpkin or you could do a ghost. It's up to you. Be creative with it. I'm going to do a cat. So I always start off with, and I'm going to zoom in now so you can see these little details. Okay, I'm going to start off with the head. And to do the head, I always do a U. And then I build off that by doing 2 little triangles on top for the ears. And it's better if you take it slow. And I'm taking it slow because as I'm drawing, I'm turning my head sideways so I can see the different angles of my crown. So there's my cat's head. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Now I'm going to arch the back by doing a partially curved line. And then I'm going to go ahead and go down to make the feet. I'm taking my time. And from here, I just connect the line up to make the tail. And there's my cat. If you're able to put the nose or the eyes like just as empty circles, you can totally do that. Let me see if I can try. There's one. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. Okay, they're there. They're not perfect, but they're there. And then I'm going to color everything around the eyes and inside the body black. And if I don't like how it colors, I'll just color the eyes in. But right now, I'm okay with that. There we go. So you can see the eyes a little bit. They're not perfect, but I can see them. And I'm coloring my cat in. So while we're coloring, and I hope you're coloring in too, I did want to go over another aspect of the lesson. So the harder you press a crown into the paper, the darker the pigment on the paper will be. Whereas the lighter you color, the lighter and more opaque or see-through the crown will be. So these are the same crowns, but obviously this one's darker, this one's lighter, and you can actually see hints of white. So again, if you want it to be this value of black, you're going to have to press your crown in a little bit harder to the paper to get that. Or you can go this light. It's up to you, but with watercolor, I can tell you that the pigment will shine through this and it'll change the color of black, probably making it look a little bit more gray. So my goal for you guys is to color everything to this shade of black. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next little decorative piece of our project. I'm going to shimmy on over. Now, I'm going to put a tree on the bumpy portion of our landscape. And I always start one way with my tree. I always start with the trunk. So from here, I'm just going to draw one line going straight down. It can be curved. It doesn't have to be straight because trees usually aren't ever straight, even though they look it. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and go from the top again to make the other line. But I'm going to, as I go down, I'm going to make the line go further away from each other to make a tree trunk. And I'm going to color that in. And then from here, I can put however many branches I want to do. I don't recommend you put a lot just because it's difficult to fit them in a general area. I'm going to try to put 5 in. And I always start with 1 on this side and then work my way and start filling in the spaces. So I'm going to again start at an angle with this one. Same concept, 1 line, and then the second line is going to be going away from the base to make the bottom of the branch a little bit thicker like that. And then from here, I just start adding little twigs. It's up to you how many twigs you want to do. Okay, and then I'm going to go over here and do another one. And maybe this one a little bit tinier because as trees get higher, the branches kind of get smaller, whereas the big arms of the tree are like V's. So I'm going to make this one branch out. I love drawing trees. They're fun. And now I'm going to start filling in the negative spaces with other things. So here I go. Just take your time. And I'm going to add some to the top. Again, it's easier if you have a sharpened crayon, but you can make it work without it. And I'm going to do a little tiny baby one right here. Some trees do have it. And there are my 5 little branches. If you want to add maybe some leaves on there, you can, but the goal of this project is to make the tree look naked, because when we put the background color with watercolor, this will really stand out. And you'll see this one is not as dark as this one, but it's still dark enough to where the paint won't alter the color of the crayon. Just make sure you don't see too much white through it. Okay. The last other feature that I want to add, I'm going to go back to my right corner. I'm going to add a crescent moon, which is basically a half moon. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it like this. It's basically a C with two lines, whereas in the middle point is the thickest. And I am coloring this in. So now that our 3 decorative pieces are done, you can then be creative and add some other stuff. I usually have kids that want to add a ghost flying outside the house, or a pumpkin over here, or even some bats. It's totally up to you what you want to put. Just don't take up too much of the negative space back here, because you want that to be covered with the paint from the watercolor. So the only thing I want to add, I'm going to add a chimney over here. Chimneys are cool. Oops, sorry about that. Little chimney, and then I'm going to put maybe like 2 little puffs of smoke coming out of it. Okay, now this is the most important part. To make sure the watercolor pops in our background and in the windows of our house, everything within the house and the ground has to be colored. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to take my time. Remember, it's not about how fast you finish, but about the quality of it. And I'm going to go ahead and just start coloring. And I know when I color, I don't color just one way. I move the paper to fit my hand, because I don't want to be coloring like this. That's just not comfortable. So you'll see me just move my paper around to fit my crown and my hand. And you'll see in some parts the crown is darker than others. And that's because the angle of my crown are different. So it's just some angles are a bit harder or more acute or slashed, and it makes it easier to color, and some aren't. But again, it all has to do with the pressure you put on your crown. So the harder you push your crown down, the darker it'll be, and the lighter you hold it, the lighter it'll be. So I'm just moving slowly. And it is a time-consuming process. So can you imagine having done this on a big piece of construction paper? It would have looked cool, but this is a lot of coloring. And you'll see as I get coloring, I'll see some, I'll see some areas that are lighter than others, and I'll just go over it with the crown again. And the reason it doesn't color in smoothly is because crayons are made from wax. And when you color, and when they have different angles like this, or different variations of where they've been used, it won't be smooth. So, I mean, if you keep turning your crown over in your hand like I do, you probably don't see it, but I do. I actually turn the crown in my hand just like this. I'm using all sides of the crown. And I'm really digging how this looks. So a quick note, if you make a mistake coloring, let's say we do this. Oh my gosh, I messed it up. Well, guess what? The great thing about this is if you extend your line out more, you just make the roof a little bit thicker. And then you can just hide your mistakes. That's what I love about markers. Crayons, you can always fix it or get creative with it. Okay, and then you've never even noticed. So I'm still coloring in. Take your time and leave the door open, because I want the color of the background to shine through my door. All right. And you're going to see my drawing completely done in 3, 2, 1. Boom. Finished. See? Magic. All right. So now that we're done with this, we're ready to move on to our watercolor portion. But we're going to save that for later, because this is a project that, again, requires 2 mediums, crayon with wax and watercolor with water and pigmented paint. So these blend beautifully together. You can then do these 2 mediums in the future with different projects, or you can just be creative and create your own things. So I will see you guys later to go ahead and finish this project. I hope you guys liked it.